Good morning, colleagues and honorable members. Shanaz, I think we can start taking apologies.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, Chair. Chair, so the apologies we received today were that of the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and the DG of DSI, Chair. Thank you. I did not receive any from the member side. Thank you, Chair.
Can you kindly confirm who will be leading the delegation from the DSI side today?
Sorry, Chair.
Can you confirm who will be leading the delegation from DSI?
Well, they have not indicated, but DDG, all the other DDGs are here. DDG Patel, Muafe is here, and I saw Zwani also here. So, but DDG Patel is on the platform, and Muafi, if they want to maybe just share who's going to lead the delegation. It wasn't indicated in the correspondence, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Please, can we get an indication on? Okay, see, Dr. Morphe's camera is open, so I'm assuming it's you.
Yeah. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I've been requested to lead and to do the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we look forward to hearing about progress that we have made in relation to the implementation of the Decadal plan. As we all know, we've been, pressing as a committee that we finalize it and that we move towards its implementation. I think we're very clear about our excitement about that, about the finalization of it. In when you presented the annual performance plans, and I think we've touched on it a bit, even in our deliberations around the annual performance reports of the department. And I think, firstly, we must really appreciate the support that we received from the department in preparation for the international study tour to Switzerland, and also send our heartfelt condolences to DDG Don Toy and his family. But I also want to stress the fact that really when one goes and looks at the type of work that other countries are doing in science and innovation, and what an integral part of government and of teaching and learning that science and innovation is in other countries, our obsession as a committee on the Decadal plan, our obsession on how the Decadal plan needs to be integrated into various spheres of government and into various departments is reaffirmed. All right, and I think when one looks at how other countries really prioritize research and development, we also really need to reflect and maybe using the Decadal plan on how we really can get private sector on board. I mean, it's crazy the type of investment that private sector makes on research and development or research and innovation, in some of the countries, well, particularly where we come from, Switzerland, right? And so we really need to reflect on what needs to be done, what conversations need to be had within NEDLAC, what conversations need to be had in various spheres of government or influential spaces, in order for us to see that an increased investment in research and development, and maybe hopefully your presentation can touch on how the Decadal plan is aiming to increase that investment by private sector in research and development. So I think that's just something I'd like to share, or what I would like to share as we start today's meeting. But we look forward to the presentations. And so, yeah, over to you, Dr. Murphy.
So, a very good morning. Lisbeth, have you got the presentation on your side?
Yes, DDG, do you want me to share
Yeah.
it for you?
Please, yeah. And honorable members, I think just as you have indicated when we're preparing to present, we have this financial year actually started already with the implementation of the work of the decadal plan. And the whole issue is that much as in terms of organizing the actual finalization of the document was concerned, we did that towards the end of last year. We were quite clear already, given what has been presented through the white paper, that this is how this is going to look like. So this presentation today is basically about updating the portfolio committee on the progress, and this will mainly relate to the implementation highlights of the decadal plan thematic priorities, the innovation and skills compact, which is really one of the areas that the intention is to make sure that we actually do so in ensuring that we actually are able to have the skills of the future into our economy. We will also provide an update on the strategic management model for science, technology, and innovation. And this is quite key in terms of how, in implementing the decadal plan as a government-wide document, we are very clear about the responsibility of all stakeholders, even including the private sector. So in summary, the priorities or thematic priorities of the decadal plan are as follows. We know that on the societal green challenges, we are looking at big issues around climate change and environment, the future of education, skills and work, and the future of society. We also have a big focus on modernization of specific sectors. And here we have identified sectors that have been the pillars of the South African economy over the decades, which, however, if we continue to do them the way they've been done in the past, we will not make any progress. So we therefore have highlighted that in the area of agriculture, in manufacturing, and in mining, we will indeed need to make sure that through science, technology, and innovation, we modernize these sectors. The new sources of growth, this is basically looking into the future, the role of the digital economy and the circular economy. And these two are quite crucial because they are cross-cutting. When you talk about manufacturing, when you talk about agriculture, when you talk about mining, when you talk about the future of society and so on and so forth, you are going to need to have a touch of both digital economy and the circular economy. And then we've got the large research and innovation programs. And here we're looking at the aspect of energy and health. On the research and innovation for a capable state, it is important that we continue to build a state that is capable, a state that is able to make decisions that are informed by facts and relevant information, and also a state that is able to deliver its services to the citizens. Next slide.
Your apologies, DDG, my slides doesn't want to move. I'm not sure what's happening.
Okay, just try and...
Let me stop sharing and share again. My apologies.
Okay. No problem. So I think as Lisbeth is preparing to reshare again, these areas, and as you probably pick up when we go forward, is areas where we appreciate that as we implement the decadal plan, there is going to be a lot of involvement of other government departments. We also are aware that in some of the areas we will need to engage with various communities. And we also will need to have a role that will be played by the private sector. And in this regard, we have already started identifying some of the private sector partners who are also buying into the whole concept of what we're trying to do through the decadal plan priorities. So the next slide will probably be on the circular economy. The aspect of secularization is becoming a drive globally, not only of how we do things, but also the impact in terms of areas of trade. So that's why, as South Africa, we have identified this as a new source of growth and reindustrialization. And we always say that when we talk about the circular economy, it's not really just about environment, but it is also about the opportunities that this gives us in terms of new areas and new cohort of entrepreneurs that are coming up that are using circular economy to make a living and also to enhance the economic development of this country. So it is really about reducing, reusing, and recycling of waste. We know that a whole lot of processes that we engage with do generate a lot of waste, so we want to reduce that. But we also want to make sure that where the waste is generated, that it can actually be reused. So whatever you do, the output of a particular process as a waste can actually then become an input into another process, which then means you are adding value to waste into products that are actually tradable. And that's also include the issue of recycling. And I must indicate that in terms of recycling, there are also programs that we have started working with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment that I'll also highlight. It is important to ensure that we've got sustainable water, energy, and food security. And this really form what we call the nexus, the water, energy, and food nexus, or generally people refer to it as the WEF. And the reality is why we call them, we group them into a nexus is because one of them collapses, basically the rest collapse. So we therefore need to manage them in a manner that ensures that the balance between the existence of the two is by no way compromised. Looking at contributing to the low carbon and climate resilient economy, and then smart connectivity and mobility in communities. So in terms of the update, we are in the process of developing a science, technology, and innovation-led circular economy strategy as part of the development of the National Circular Economy Strategy. In fact, on the National Circular Economic Strategy, there are currently informal discussions, which if, depending on the direction that they take, the department may, at the request of the Department of Forest, Fishery and Environment, also lead the development of the National Circular Economy strategy. But so far, we are only working on the STI side of it, and which we hope that by sometimes the middle of next year, the strategy will be ready. We also have established an intergovernmental committee to guide this science, technology, and innovation for circular economy strategy. And this intergovernmental committee comprises of us as leading, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the Department of Human Settlements, the Department of Water and Sanitation, and also the latest addition being the Department of Health. This will enable a strong partnership between government departments to drive the circular economy in the country. Because as we've seen, secularization is actually more than just the environment. When we talk about the role of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, who I've actually also omitted who are part of this, they also need to, in looking at manufacturing, bring on board the modern aspect of manufacturing that are sensitive to secularization. The Circular Innovation South Africa is an initiative of the DSI, and we're hosting this initiative at the CSIR, and it does coordinate a whole lot of research and engagement activities around circular innovation. It is aimed at supporting South Africa's transition to a more circular economy through science, technology, and innovation. We have also, in aiding the implementation of the circular economy, launched a circular economy demonstration fund in partnership with universities, science councils, and industry. We have made the first call in June, and we are currently contracting with projects to make sure that we get the work underway. We also are doing a lot of work in supporting alternative building technologies. There are two innovation initiatives that have been launched. You probably are aware of the 3D printing of houses. And this is being piloted with the Umhlatuse municipality in KZN. The pilot that was launched in January this year was launched at the University of Johannesburg. And we have also seen some interest from the Gauteng human settlements as well. But I must also indicate that the National Department of Human Settlements is also quite involved in this program. We've got the STI for Sustainable Human Settlements Roadmap, which identified innovations such as the digitization of the application process for housing subsidies and rental accommodation, the use of plant material to make eco-friendly concrete, the use of recycled plastic waste to make building material that meet industrial standards. And all those things are just to make sure that housing as well is part of what we're modernizing. On the Hydrogen Society roadmap, you may recall that this was launched in 2021 towards the end of the year. And this is really the coming into fruition or the maturation of the HISA or Hydrogen South Africa strategy implementation, where a lot of technologies and IP was generated through research program. And now we have reached a stage where we need to begin to demonstrate the economic and social impact viability of the hydrogen economy. So this is really the vision, is to make sure that we have an inclusive, sustainable, and competitive hydrogen economy by 2050, with a goal of achieving a just and inclusive net zero carbon economy. And the purpose really is to align the stakeholders on a common vision of hydrogen-related technologies. And this will include bringing together a relevant government department, the private sector, and as you begin to see in the next slides, that we are now moving towards that direction. This is just to demonstrate the area where we have already shown the relevance and the potential impact of the hydrogen technology. On top, on the left side, you see this is what we call the stationary application of hydrogen, where we were able to provide electricity during COVID at one military hospital in 2020. And this was not used as backup power, but the hydrogen was actually the primary source of power for the COVID section of the hospital. And that on the right side, it just shows the arrangement of the COVID beds. And this particular hospital area was an extension outside the hospital. In terms of the mobility side, these are the post office scooters that we worked with the post office to extend the range. So the challenge that the post office had at the time was that they have the scooters, the battery scooters, but the range, they would drive out, and then after a few kilometers, the batteries would just die out. And hence, they either needed to be towed back or dragged back or whatever they would then do. But then they approached the HISA at UWC to assist with the range extension using fuel cells. And this actually almost doubled the range, which was quite welcome. On the right, underneath is the forklift that was developed in partnership with Impala Platinum in Springs. And this is particularly important in also addressing the issues of pollution, both noise and actually the air pollution that will come up with a typical diesel forklift. So the high-level outcome of the Hydrogen Society roadmap, it is expected to contribute to the following: the green enhanced power sector buildings, and this is the work that will be partnered with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and also Public Works and Infrastructure. The decarbonization of transport sector, it is quite important that we begin to look at the impact of the fossil fuel-based transport sector and how we replace that. And you might be aware of the launched by the president and last year of the big truck at Mogalakwena platinum mine that is now being powered through hydrogen. This is really what the intention is, that we have as many of those on hydrogen, we then reduce the carbonization. The creation of manufacturing sector for hydrogen products and components, this I will indicate when we look at some of the catalytic projects leading by the department and in partnership with DTIC, DMRE, and the small business development. Because when you're creating this sector, you also are going to have a lot of small department that are, small companies that are going to be involved in providing some of the components. The decarbonization of energy-intensive industries, looking at iron and steel, chemicals, mining, and refineries, and cement. Here I will also show on the slides what are the catalytic projects that relate to that. Creating an export market for green hydrogen and green ammonia. This is quite important because currently where hydrogen is being manufactured and sold or exported, they are exporting what we call gray hydrogen, which is going to be hydrogen that is coming primarily from high pollutants such as coal. So green hydrogen is going to be part of the catalytic projects that we do using electrolysis and solar, so that you don't have any damage to the atmosphere. Transition from gray to blue and green, that's basically what I've just been explaining. Next slide. Next slide, Lisbeth. I will start again. Okay, good. So these are some of the catalytic projects that some are already underway, and this is basically to just say that indeed, when we talk about the hydrogen society roadmap and the economy, it's actually possible. On the coal carbon dioxide to X project, this is where we're saying yes, as a country, we still have got a number of years of reliance and use of coal. And what do we then do? This project basically looks at cleaning up when that coal has been used and you're releasing a lot of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide, what we call the COXes, the NOXes, and the SOXes. So when you release them into the atmosphere, instead of just letting them go and pollute, through this project, you actually capture them and you use them to manufacture value-added products. And these products can range from fertilizer, salts, and other chemicals. And this particular pilot is being run at PPC in Limpopo. We visited, and this was officially launched in January this year, just to demonstrate how you then capture this, and you could then make ammonia. Out of ammonia, you can then make a whole lot of other things, including, of course, gray hydrogen. Then from the sulfur waste, you can also make chemicals like sulfuric acid, which are very useful industrially in other aspects. And then, of course, in addition to ammonia, on the NOx side, you can also make fertilizer. So this is really basically trying to say, yes, we are going to still have these industries, but instead of releasing this as waste, we're going to capture them and use them to manufacture other value-added products. The Platinum Valley, part of which is basically to carbonize the transport system, is to begin to say, including the trucks that are being used in the mine, and whatever trucks are going to be transporting what have been mined into the harbor, that we start to have stations where they can actually be using hydrogen as a source of fuel, and then they can refuel on the way around the N3 corridor going to Durban. So obviously, when this has been proven and shown to work well, it will be expanded to other areas. So this is really just to make sure that we create hubs where the green hydrogen production can actually be be manufactured. And there have been a lot of modelings that have been done around what number of jobs can be created and what contribution to the economy this can actually bring. The green hydrogen catalytic project, again, this is looking at production of green hydrogen and ammonia for domestic use and for export. And the manufacturing, of course, of things such as electrolyzer packs, the solar and wind energy and battery pack. So basically, what is planned to happen within Bohobai is that you got a lot of solar parks, solar parks where you generate energy from the sun. And with this energy, you can actually then desalinize seawater. And when you have desalinized it and you remove the salts, then you can again electrolyze it to split hydrogen and oxygen. And the hydrogen that you would have split, it would have used none of the fossil-based energy sources. So that is why it is going to be referred to as green hydrogen. Now, the whole world sees the capacity, especially within South Africa and Namibia, around the production of green hydrogen, which is why there is a lot of interest in this program. Because when you've got green hydrogen, that also means that in terms even of your trading and whatever, there's going to be opportunities of you being looked at selling products that are sensitive to environment. The sustainable aviation fuel, of course, this needs to move into including how do we localize production of aviation fuels for domestic use and export. That will be, for example, based on green hydrogen. Of course, we have indicated that we're targeting in terms of the programs such as the coal carbon dioxide to X, manufacturing facilities such as the steel plants. We're looking at, we're already working with the cement manufacturing. All other coal-fired power stations as well, they are our targets. Next slide. So in terms of progress, I have mentioned the projects that I've mentioned in terms of catalytic projects. We have indicated that the coal carbon dioxide to X1 was launched in January this year. Now the main focus is the conversion of heavy-duty diesel trucks from diesel to hydrogen and fuel cell power in order to reduce emission. That is really on the Hydrogen Valley initiative. The project is supported by Infrastructure South Africa for registration as strategic infrastructure project, and the hydrogen and fuel cell truck was launched by Anglo American Platinum at Mogalakwena last year. The president was there to launch it. We also are collaborating with the Japanese partners on green hydrogen and green ammonia production under a project called SATREPS. It's a long ongoing project with the Japanese, initiated with Northwest University and Sasol. And I must indicate that on that one, that currently Japan is getting what we call grey hydrogen from Australia, and they are very hungry for green hydrogen. So they are looking at being one of the top buyers of the green hydrogen from ourselves. The modeling of potential employment and impact, I think I've indicated some of the figures there. There are a number of scenarios. The business as usual scenario basically means that we extract the platinum group metals and we export them, no value addition, and we don't do anything. So what we then have is, as a country, obviously, business as usual takes us nowhere. But when we start to look at value addition on the PGM side, then you start to look into the production of fuel cells, the development of electrolyzers for export, and even if we are not utilizing that hydrogen domestically, we still are looking at 1.1 additional growth of South African economy by 2050, as contributed to by this kind of project. And we're also looking at 16.6 thousand TVET jobs in the green hydrogen economy related sectors. Then let's look at the status quo with domestic hydrogen use. That means, of course, we will be able to just extract the platinum and export it as it is. But then with domestic hydrogen utilization, the growth is starting to show that hydrogen economy is really going to be playing a huge role in the economic growth and even in terms of job creation. But when we look at the best case scenario, which is what we are really targeting, where we're looking at beneficiation, we're looking at export and also the utilization of green hydrogen locally. The net benefit to the economy is about 11.4 contribution to the GDP, 1.36 million TVET jobs for the entire economy by 2050, and 99.2 TVET jobs in the green hydrogen related sectors. Now, the other area that we're looking at is the issue of the development of local vaccines. And this is really to make sure that we support and strengthen the R&D aspect of our vaccine manufacturing capabilities. And this, we're looking at it from the full value chain aspect. So basically, where does a disease start? It starts with some kind of a pathogen of sort, whether it is a bacteria or a virus. So we therefore need to have capabilities of surveillance to be able to pick these pathogens in time. And after you have picked them up, then you are able to isolate, you do gene sequencing to actually understand what they are, what their history is, whether have we had anything in the past like this. And after you have done that, then that goes hand in hand with diagnostics. After you have done the diagnostics, of course, you will need to have developed your own medical and diagnostic devices. That is also aspect of what we're trying to do in this whole ecosystem. And after you have done that, then you say, how do we then treat a pathogen with a genomic makeup like this? That's where we start to develop relevant APIs and vaccines. And of course, everything we do has got to have a human development aspect. And what we require for that is indeed to have world-class infrastructure to fast-track R&D. So vaccine manufacturing is a very sensitive area where you've got to make sure that your facilities are up to scratch. Next slide. So here we're looking at the most common platform. I mean, the one platform is the newest addition into vaccine manufacturing, which is the mRNA technology. The other ones, the virus-like particle technology, is quite an old technology. And this is where you basically use other organisms, like normally you use plant to express antigens that would have been expressed if you were using virus. And then you also have inactivated pathogens, another old vaccine manufacturing technology, where you basically use the problematic pathogen, but having inactivated it so that it doesn't cause diseases. And then we also have the conjugated vaccines. So these are really the areas of technology that we're looking at. In terms of the mRNA technology, you will recall that through the World Health Organization, South Africa is hosting the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub. And in this hub, a lot of progress has been made. A number of countries, at least 12 countries, developing countries, have been trained in South Africa for manufacturing of mRNA-based vaccines. We have already developed a COVID vaccine, which is undergoing preclinical trials. And so far, that COVID vaccine has proven to be as effective as the other vaccines that have been used during COVID. Now, the target is not necessarily a COVID vaccine, but we are saying if we are able to develop a COVID vaccine, we can use the same capabilities to focus on developing, for example, malaria vaccine, tuberculosis vaccine, and HIV vaccine, and obviously, flu vaccines as well. So this is really where we're moving in, and as I indicated, the progress has been exciting. There's also a national vaccine development and manufacturing strategy, which is looking at other platforms. And this is, again, in ensuring that local capabilities is built, and we minimize the dependence on imports, and also to be able to be self-sustainable, so that if another pandemic hits, we've got the capabilities to respond very quickly to manufacture our own vaccines, or to be able to really look at how best we can, not only for ourselves but also for the rest of the continent, respond to pandemics, so we don't wait to be on the back of the queue of other countries that are manufacturing vaccines. This is really just the technical information around what vaccines are being used for which diseases and which technology they use and who are the manufacturers. Some of the vaccines, of course, haven't been successful, and some were. There were hundreds and hundreds of vaccines that were under development during the COVID period, but only a few actually made it successfully after clinical trials. Next slide. So this slide is just to show the expenditure of government in various vaccines. And what this means is, if we have our own local manufacturing for the bulk of this that we are importing, you actually can then minimize the technology balance of payments by making sure that we actually are manufacturing locally instead of importing. Next slide. Again, this is just another market analysis slide, just to really justify why it is important for us to have a strategy for vaccine manufacturing to make sure that we are self-sufficient when it comes to vaccines. And this is really just looking at diseases, especially those that are part of the expanded program on immunization. Next slide. So one of the challenges that we have had in the country is sometimes that our procurement have been insensitive to locally produced products, and especially in the area of pharmaceuticals. So following the decision that has impacted BioVac very badly earlier in the year, where one of the tenders was given to an Indian company, we then, through the direction of the minister, establish a task team to look at how we can promote local procurement of pharmaceutical. And this is really because, as we're talking, because of that kind of decision, we're now sitting in a situation where BioVac is currently has just finished the process of letting a good number of his staff go because they didn't really have that particular tender. So we then have a task team that included our DG, the DG of National Department of Health, the DTIC, and National Treasury. The meeting was held in 2nd of May, and this was to discuss the sustainability of local pharmaceutical manufacturing, lack of coherent and coordinated policy within government. So in other words, so you find that we got incentives for local procurement. The Department of Science will be supporting the development of capabilities. But when it comes to the purchasing of vaccines, you find that that particular responsibility then falls within the Department of Health, and then the procurement then become misaligned with this kind of commitment to local procurement. So the mandate really that this task team was given is to develop an appropriate policy framework for vaccine manufacture capabilities and pandemic preparedness, and to explore the levers that could be the levers that could be applied to make sure that we drive local procurement. So the main areas have been really to identify a range of instruments and interventions across government to support local manufacturing, and of course, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has actually indicated what kind of support they would have on their side. Analyzing the procurement amendment bill and making recommendations on how the bill could give effect to the above. So we also were party to the process of the amendment where we highlighted the need, and there it was much broader than pharmaceuticals, because we were also saying We have also other entities of government like the CSIR that are developing a whole range of exciting technologies and innovations, and that as government, prior to us going outside to buy, we need to look at where our taxpayers' monies have gone to support entities like the CSR, and then go and buy from them. Evaluating the benefits of local production of vaccines, the impact of industrialization, so job creation, higher incomes, multiplier, skills development. And this is really a very important aspect, because sometimes when you go into procurement with a mentality of saying, I'm getting a cheap product, you don't look at what cheap means. Because if an extra dollar difference makes you to go for a cheaper product that you're going to import, you are failing to realize the impact on employment. You are failing to realize the impact on how those employees who are losing their jobs were going to contribute to their tax by paying taxes and so on and so forth. You are also failing to realize the impact of the whole ecosystem, where you've got various service providers around the whole aspect of vaccine manufacturing. You're going to have storage, you're going to have delivery, you're going to have manufacturers of vials for vaccines and so on and so forth. So those normally congregate along this ecosystem. And if you're just looking at saying, okay, this vaccine is cheaper by $1, I'm going to buy it, then you actually miss out on the bigger picture. The international benchmarking with regards to preferential procurement and incentives and enablers, we looked at the countries like Brazil, India, China, what they have done to actually today become recognizable manufacturing destinations for vaccines and other pharmaceuticals. It was because they started off looking at the whole aspect of preferential procurement. Proposal of mechanisms to assist local manufacturers to access markets and to ensure sustainability, and also cost premium incentives needed to protect local industry. And yes, of course, we do appreciate that we needed also to look at how to make sure that the Department of Health doesn't really feel that they are losing much by going for a cheaper one. So how do we make sure that the issue of cost premiums are also addressed? Policy linkages in the agricultural bioeconomy. Now, the one thing about health is we always sometimes look at it from the human being point of view, but we also, in the concept of what we call One Health, need to look at it also from the agricultural point of view. We deal a lot, for example, with zoonotic diseases. These are diseases that would have broken through from being animal diseases to being human diseases. Whether you talk about influenza, whether you talk about COVID, whether you talk about swine flu and so on, SARS, those were zoonotic diseases that have moved and are now having an impact on human beings. So the concept of linking this with the agricultural economy means that you then begin to say, how do we make sure that the health of the animal is also linked to the health of human being? And the next slide, please. So that's where we talk about what we call the National Biosecurity Hub. So where you are able to, pretty much as you do in terms of observing and continuously looking out for pathogens that are impacting on human beings, you also need to do the same for animals. We know what biosecurity means, not only to health, but also to the economy, because of currently what we are going through in the chicken industry, where, we've got, avian flu that is just basically decimating the whole industry. And the fears, of course, is that when you don't rein in on that, they can also, in a way, create an opportunity for mutations that can lead to this becoming human diseases. So this is basically looking, and we're doing this in partnership with the National Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and as a program that is going to look into the global vaccine manufacturing strategy that is being developed. Next slide. So this is what you do when you are doing those kind of observations. You got surveillance, you got early warnings, you develop our capabilities, and that's quite crucial because one of the critical areas is that we see that there has been a decline at some point of you know people who are coming out with training in these particular areas because of the fewer institutions that are involved. I mean, currently you've got, I think it's primarily TECIS, University of Pretoria, that has these kind of programs. So we need to therefore make sure that we build on the human capacity to strengthen these particular areas. And this is really gonna rely on issues of big data science, making sure that, of course, we are always aware because with climate change, there are also a whole lot of changes and severity of some of these biosecurity challenges. And these are challenges that have to be looked even across the borders because just like the human diseases, some of these diseases cross over and they create havoc. Some of them not even through the proper domesticated animals, but also through game and so on and so forth. Next slide. So this is just to show the launch of the Biosecurity Hub last year by our minister and the Minister of Dalrat. It's really one in terms of the implementation of the Decadal plan, one area where the working relations between the two departments have been excellent. Next slide. The foundational digital capabilities, this is really looking at the aspects of, for a lack of better word, digitization. What do we need to do and what are the programs that we are having under this particular initiative? We're hosting this program at the CSIR and it's looking at areas such as artificial intelligence and robotics and cybernetics, looking at Internet of Things and cloud computing. We need to build these capabilities, blockchain and cybersecurity, augmented, virtual, and mixed reality. Now, why it is important for us to create this foundation is that a lot of what is done, for example, at application level by the likes of the Department of, by the DCDT, is harvesting on a particular foundation, and which foundation, if it doesn't exist, then we know that even our artificial intelligence initiatives or Internet of Things will actually not be successful. It's pretty much like saying, before you can fly a plane, you need to have made sure that it can actually land. There is going to be an airport and there is going to be a place where it is going to be refueled. Otherwise, if you just harvest these things, you don't have a foundation from which to keep going. I'll give you an example. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we always complain about technology biases. Because if we are to be honest, if you develop a system that is going to be sourcing its data from predominantly work that has been done and generated in the USA, when you try to make it do predictions in a country anywhere in South Africa or in Africa, the outcome will be completely different. So if you are dealing, for example, with face recognition, and the source of the data is European, any form of trying to use that system in Africa is going to also have a lot of distortion. So when we have a foundational digital capabilities program, we are able to then say, how do we generate our own data? And on the basis of our own data, how do we then begin to use these technologies in a manner that is going to be relevant in terms of context and in terms of dealing with the necessary biases? So that's really basically what we're creating. So this is going to focus on developing a lot of human capabilities, developing a lot of technology, generating a lot of data from which we are going to be able to then use the data for artificial intelligence, for Internet of Things, and including aspects of blockchain. Next slide. So one of the critical aspect of this area is also making sure that we involve as many institutions as possible, looking at skills, and these are the skills that we're looking. And this is basically to say we shouldn't just focus on making sure that there is robotics lesson for our learners, because that mainly operates in the form of a toolkit. But we need to be able to say, how do we even teach our kids things such as the development of chips and so on and so forth? Those are the sort of things that we're going to look at, and we see some of these aspects become a platform for various geopolitics battles. We're seeing the chip war between the US and China and so on and so forth. And if that kind of war spills over globally, we are going to need to have our own capabilities. Next slide. So this is really just to show you the geographic spread of these activities around digital foundational capabilities. Main centers, as indicated, Stellenbosch University, CPUT, FEDS, UKZN, and UNIZUL. And then we also have a number of partnering centers. As you see, we've got the CSIR, SANSA, SANREN, National Metrology Institute of South Africa, and the Center for High Performance Computing. And we have made it very clear that this is really just the beginning, but the plan is to make sure that we reach out and we are available in all campuses, especially those campuses that are previously disadvantaged. So this is really to indicate to you what each of the center is focusing on. We have looked at the existing capacity and we're building on them. So for example, in terms of devices, is CPUT, Stellenbosch University, and UNIZUL. And we know the capacity of CPUT, for example, in manufacturing of satellites. Stellenbosch, the same. In terms of leadership, Wits University, infrastructure, SANREN and SANSA, protocols, Wits and UKZN, legislation, ourselves as a department, DTIC, Treasury, and also DCDT. Next slide. So we have also, over the past 3 years, been implementing the Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund, we're using it as the driver for public-private partnership. And this is really a fund that is starting to show the impact in bridging what we call the innovation chasm. So a lot of the innovations were basically just falling on the wayside because of lack of funding. And what we're doing is, through this fund, we are able to provide an allocation that de-risks some of these innovations, and then it attracts more funding for it to reach commercialization. And what is crucial here is, even though failures will still occur, but they will be hugely reduced compared to when nothing was happening after the IP was registered. So what is important here is also to see what impact it has started to have. We are partnering with a number of entities, the PIC, of course, our own Technology Innovation Agency, the SME Fund. They are amongst the partners that we have been implementing this fund with. Next slide. So this was really just the analysis done on 2020, 2021. There are there's work going on in terms of analyzing what has happened with the previous financial year allocation, where we saw that as an intervention to increase the private sector investment, this has really done well. 24 projects currently supported, 21 with the following partners. I've indicated these partners as the ones that we're working with. And this is really just to show what has happened when we put our own money. So in phase 1, we put down 150 million rand of this fund, and this was able to attract an additional 1 billion from the private sector. And that has really, some of the projects have gone to a point where they are starting to even increase their own operation because of the investment that have been made. Next slide. So around the aspect of innovation and skills compact, the context and purpose, this is really the key to a sustainable and inclusive modern economy. So there's no doubt that a modern economy in the 4IR era is going to need completely different set of skills than have been produced in the past. So we therefore have to make sure that we look at developing such skills that are looking at the jobs of the future. The countries across the globe with high levels of economic growth and social development purposefully manage innovation and skills at the appropriate level of government. So that is why the 2019 White Paper of Science and Technology, Science, Technology and Innovation called for an innovation and skills compact with a whole society approach. And the purpose is that the South African Innovation and Skills Compact is intended to enable synergistic action to develop the skills needed to drive innovation in general and the thematic priorities specifically. The skills that have been identified, we have been speaking a lot about the Hydrogen Society Roadmap. We do indeed need skills in the hydrogen economy, other sources of renewable energy. The renewable energy is one sector that has actually exploded over the years, and we need to develop more and more skills. And when I interacted with some of the main players in this area, one of the things that we don't realize is that the importance of this kind of skills has reached proportions that the demand are global. So we see a lot even of South African renewable energy skilled personnel being posed to countries like Australia, Middle East, and so on and so forth. So we need to continue to build these skills. In the mining sector, we do also realize that there's a need of skills, and then through the South African Mining Extraction Research and Development Innovation Strategy, there have been a number of skills areas that have been identified. In the area of vaccine manufacturing, I spoke to that as well. Space science and technology, we also know that there are a number of skills around satellite engineering, both in terms of up and downstream activities. Mathematics science, and computational sciences. In the era of data science, it is important for us to really have these skills. IP management, quite crucial in making sure that we develop a crop of entrepreneurs that are going to create employment and not just be the kind of graduates that are looking for employment. Inclusive innovation is a very critical area, and of course, the development and maintenance of state-of-the-art research equipment, infrastructure, and pilot plants. Next slide. So the economic sector opportunities, the existing innovation skills programs are opening up opportunities in the following economic sectors. In the main, the gig, the platform economy, we have seen a lot of growth in the development of mobile apps, ICT industry job placement, agriculture sector and the circular economy, the role of drones, robotics technologies, green technologies, and alternative primary agricultural protocols, renewable energies and water efficiency, financial services in terms of inclusion and financial education. And when you talk about inclusion in the financial sector, is how we see the role of innovation in actually ensuring that the financial services sector caters for the unbanked. Education and health, the role of e-health. We are aware, for example, that only as recently as last week, the Limpopo Department of Health has actually broken the new fallow ground in terms of having their first robotic procedure done. So that's really the move towards e-health. crime surveillance, improving teaching and learning in the disadvantaged schools, for example. When we've got the kind of technologies that we have, even if you don't have a maths teacher in a particular school, but looking at the use of modern technologies, you can actually reach out to them through mobile education. The purpose of consultation with DHET and the Department of Labor. So there is a general need, of course, of policy coherence. So we know that a lot of the resources around skills development sits with the Department of Higher Education and Training, and the implication of the kind of trainees that we develop have an impact on our labor sector. So we therefore work very closely with the department, with both departments. There were consultation held on the 8th of October about the strategy for education and skills development in STI sector, requests for input from DHET and DL on their own appropriate approaches to skilling, upskilling, and reskilling, because one of the critical areas around skills development is not just going to be about skills development, but also about how do we upskill those who are already in the workplace and reskill them. And this is where the initiatives such as the Learning Factory at the CSR come in. There is, of course, a need for us to coordinate among role players so that we can actually avoid wastage in terms of resources, but also make sure that we don't have a problem where we say, okay, the higher education is producing skills that are irrelevant to the economy, or the science system is training people in areas where they're not going to find employment. So that's really why we have to do it together. In terms of progress on the systemic enablers of the STI Decadal plan, there's an area around public STI budget coordination and the strategic management model. And of course, work around these areas have started a while back, and now we can really report on some of the progress. Next slide. It is important that there is coherence in the STI governance and funding architecture. And what we're looking now is, as proposed by the white paper, having various governance structures that are going to enable us to do these things. Of course, at the highest level, having the Science and Innovation Presidential Council, which will be able to really direct the work of the IMC, and this council, of course, will have all role players in place. The IMC being the interministerial committee, which then meets often to look at what is it that we need to focus on various aspects of the Decadal plan, and what the latest meeting we held this Tuesday, which was attended by, I think, a good number of relevant ministers who are looking more at the ministers and the government officials that are involved in innovation-intensive departments, and also those that are highly impacted by the work of the department. The topics for consultations, of course, ensuring that the programs, which programs are to be funded across various departments, what are the areas in terms of the skills that we need to look at. The levers, of course, is budget coordination and making sure that we've got a fit for purpose strategic management model for STI. Next slide. So this is really just showing where and each of the stakeholders in terms of government actually play a role. So the department obviously leading and being active participants in the emerging areas. So when there is something that is new and needing to be researched and to generate new knowledge, of course, the department it takes full responsibility. And then there are going to be a whole range of the activities that also touches on the mandates of other government departments. So, for example, insofar as sector-specific research is done, whether it is in agriculture, health, minerals, and so on and so forth, again, that's where we work, and we want to also partner with the relevant government departments. So this really then forms the central part of the strategic management model, where we jointly, even in terms of priority setting, for example, we only fund health research on the basis of what priorities the Department of Health has set as the areas of focus for research, so that we don't really do research on areas that are not of priority or diseases. And then on matured areas, that's where the relevant government department takes over, and this is really where we deal with issues like the routine work, whether we talk about forensics, the technologies is there, they've been developed, unless it is about developing newer technologies, then we can be involved. But if it's really just about testing the weather services, a kind of activity and so on, then that is really the work that falls fully under the relevant government departments. So we therefore see, even in terms of the budgeting, that the amount of investment by the department goes down as we migrate more towards the right, because we are beginning to say, yes, in terms of the development of newer areas, we will be quite involved and we will invest, but more and more as we are focusing on sector-specific aspects and the maturation of various technologies. And when it really goes to a point where technologies need to be taken up, then that's where the line departments come on board. Next slide. So the progress update on the STI public budget coordination. The IMC on Science, Technology and Innovation has endorsed the budget coordination as part of the MTech and DPME planning process. A DSI DPME National Treasury Task Team has been established to phase in the integration of national STI priorities in the budget prioritization framework. And we're quite pleased about this development, because now it's not just DSI talking about what needs to be done, but it is about ensuring that even in terms of the budget prioritizing framework, the aspect of innovation and the funding thereof is being highlighted in a manner that says where relevant government departments are concerned, they need to also contribute to the work of science, technology, and innovation. And this is really going to be integrated into annual performance plan of some government departments. We have identified departments that we want to start piloting with this coming financial year, but with time we're going to bring all relevant government departments. But now we have identified a few that we've started working on, whose APPs as from next financial year will need to include aspects of innovation. Progress on the budget coordination again. The DPME has included STI priorities into 24-25 national guideline for assessment of draft strategic plans. That's what I was referring to. And what then will happen is that because the DSI forms part of the assessing department APPs, that means those APPs will then also be shared with us before they are finalized. And we will be able to say, yes, we are happy that this aspect of innovation has been included, but with future, obviously, also adding more so that the aspect of innovation becomes part of the institutionalization of the APPs and the reporting by government departments. As part of this capacity building to support fully integrated STI planning and budgeting, a hybrid international and local study of best practice in budget tagging for STI has been proposed. Next slide. So in terms of the updated strategic management model, the ministry and the DSI will function as the coordinators, focusing on the following areas: the policy and strategy for STI across the NSI, decision of the STI presidential plenary and IMC, the allocation of macro resources, the promotion of system learning through monitoring and evaluation, the maximization of international cooperation and resources, the systemic oversight of public research organization. And when we say public research organizations, we also are referring to organizations that don't necessarily report to the Department of Science and Innovation, like your MINTEC, Council for Geoscience, Medical Research Council, and so on and so forth. Then the provision of human capacity and infrastructure for STI. So in terms of what's going to happen next, of course, the inaugural presidential STI plenary is scheduled for the 12th of December. And this is when we are looking forward to basically having the sense of affording the STI the required support and stature across government and society. This will probably be the biannual consultative meeting convened by the presidency, supported by the department. The invitees are NSI leaders from government, business, academia, and civil society. And really, this is really to serve as a collaborative platform for NSA partners to consider plans and reports of the IMC on STI, and really to ensure that business presents its own requirement, so that when we talk about the implementation of the decadal plan, as we have said in the beginning, that indeed it is an SA Inc. kind of an approach. Next slide. So the linkages between the plenary and the IMC, the plenary, of course, is going to be joint reflection on NSI progress and challenges, recommendation of action, and the joint commitment of funding. The IMC really serves as an enabling environment for innovation compacting. There's also high-level agenda setting and also the approval of decadal plans and committing of resources and the monitoring of STI performance. And most importantly, really has been the aspect of how, with input from other government departments and the relevant ministers, we are looking at planning the activities of government on STI. The department, of course, will need to continue working towards the strengthening of NACI, the monitoring and evaluation function, the investment framework, stronger STI policy leadership, making sure that we support innovation, we support entrepreneurship, and the spatial footprint of innovation, so that when we talk about STI, we're not only just talking about the role of department in the metropoles, but also in the deep rural areas, in the township, and so on and so forth. Next slide. So in terms of priorities going forward, we are going to really work towards the institutionalization of the social grant challenges. This is the area that we haven't really expanded much because we're still working on them. We're building on existing work though, because there's already work that the department has been doing around climate change, human and social dynamics, and high level or what we call high-end skills. So the aspect of the grant challenges will really be building on that. We will be continue to depend the work of vaccine manufacturing and hydrogen economy, as well as the circular economy and the digital economy, and the modernization of sectors, as I've indicated, agriculture, manufacturing, and mining. Progress with the innovation skills compact, the aspect of addressing the IP leakage, and also enabling procurement of local developed innovations. So the priority going forward will really be ensuring the sustainability of public entities, increase in terms of our contribution of funding of the R&D, and this is in particular the area of private sector, which has been lagging behind. And then we also are going to work towards the allocation by STI relevant departments of appropriate percentage of their budgets to STI. This is really the whole work around budget coordination. So with that, Chairperson and honorable members, I end the presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morfe, for that presentation. Really insightful, also very succinct and clear. I'm going to note if there are any members who have any questions on questions, comments, recommendations. On my side, I would just like to speak to two matters. One, I think it's I won't say comforting, but one must acknowledge that there is work being done around our country's pharmaceutical capacity. I think this has been of great concern to citizens and to ourselves. And of course, I think at some point we did have a joint committee meeting with the portfolio committee of health. Dr. Morfe, if you can just close your mic for a bit. Thank you. We did have a joint committee meeting with the portfolio committee on health. And I think this is if at a point at which the colleagues in the DSI feel that we could have another meeting with the colleagues in health, maybe to just take them through some of the strides that we're making on our side. I think that would really benefit us so that they're also able to follow through on their side in terms of pushing their department in the right direction. But I also wanted to know, I know that we are doing a lot of work in terms of um, hydrogen innovations or technologies in universities, particularly through the hydrogen roadmap. One would want to know if we have been able to include some TVET colleges in that work as well. I think just looking at some of the lessons we've recently learned from outside, I think it would be very important for us to also strengthen artisanal skills within the hydrogen innovation space. And then your slides, yeah, you ended the presentation with slide 40, but there were some additional slides in the presentation that you sent us, and some of them, speak about the gross expenditure on research and development, and I guess to some extent, it speaks to some of the concerns that I had earlier on, but not, of course, directly on private sector. But that I just think something I'm noting. Yeah, I think I'm fine for now because I think the presentation has been quite clear. A lot is just for noting, in terms of progress that has been made in this regard. Let me note, I see Honorable Mananiso's hand. Honorable Mananiso.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I think I didn't want to speak. I actually wanted to acknowledge the presentation without saying anything, but I think it is important that as public servant, we need to acknowledge the work that has been done in this public platform. For those who are not doing what it's right, at least to be motivated that there are capable people in the space, more especially in the public space like our government, that are actually capable as human beings who are employed in specific areas. And I think I must say that we are able to follow through from the colloquium that we had and the roadmap that we've been working in the journey with the DSI in terms of science and innovation, that indeed they are doing what they've been speaking about on their decadal plan. And they are demonstrating that the relevance of innovation in achieving economic development is one of the key enablers tool for our economic development, Chairperson. So we need to applaud them. And I think what you said, it is important when you opened the meeting about the tour to Switzerland, that we were able to see, touch, and feel the work that they are doing international. So indeed, we've got capable people there, Chairperson. But again, Chair, I think my question is with regards to their participation today at AGOA conference. I just want to check if the department, they are part of the conference. The reason why I'm asking is because of I got interested on their presentation when they spoke about their slide of my notes are all over. I wanted to speak on their presentation where they took us through on the issues where they are dealing with circular economy to drive for South African trades. Because most of the things that have been publicized at our Goa conference, it's things that they are actually part of as the value chain programs by the department, noting that their work as well is they have established the intergovernmental committee. So it is important to just check if they are part of this AGOA program today, so that at least we are able to know that whatever that they are presenting to us, it's not just notes, but it's something that is happening and very effective and efficient for the department. That's it for myself, Chairperson, and I want to say well done. They must keep on going. Let's talk and more work. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mananiso. Honorable Itia.
Good morning, Chairperson, to yourself, all colleagues on the platform, leadership from the Department of Science and Innovation. I think let's join the choir of welcoming the presentation from the department. Maybe the first one to begin with is that part of the Decadal plan. In November last year, I think it was on the 30th of November last year, 2022, Cabinet approved the 2022 to 2032 Decadal plan. Last year. Now, my question there is, what are the key next steps in relation to the implementation of that Decadal plan? What are timeframes that are attached to these critical next steps? What specific actions and outcome can be reported in relation to the work of the IMC on STI to date? And then, other than appointing Dr. Cele as the permanent CEO of NAGI, what progress can be reported in relation to strengthening NAGI to fulfill the needs as envisioned in the Decadal plan? And when will the first STI plenary be convened? I think for me, that should be maybe just one more. What progress has been made with restructuring the Department of Science and Innovation and its programs to realize the needs of this Decadal plan? And what are those envisaged changes, if any? What are the challenges, if any? And what are the timeframes attached to the proposed changes? What progress can be reported in relation to any planning, work undertaken, timeframe set, etc., around the STI priorities and SGCs of the Decadal plan? Thank you very much, Chairperson. And agree with both yourself and Honorable Manani, so that every time when we are having meetings with science and innovation, we leave the meeting happy. They don't create problems. So I think your sound coming from your mouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Itia. I thought you were finished. Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Chair. Let me join all other honorable members in one, appreciating the presentation, but also complimenting the good work that is being done. And I think it's important for us to be able to give credit where it's due. Chair, in terms of the Innovation Compact, what are the key short-term actions around the Innovation Compact and what progress can be reported so far? Are there any specific commitments and actions attached to the Innovation Compact so far? And to which departments do these commitments and actions relate? And then the last one, Chair, is on the alternative methods and innovative methods in terms of addressing load shedding. I've recently learned that there's a pilot at some of the Home Affairs offices. Perhaps if DSI can just share with us what are some of these innovative ideas that they are starting to pilot and roll out. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Pillay. Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me extend my greetings to the department. Let me extend my greetings to members on the platform and to all South Africans who are following the proceedings of this portfolio committee. Chair, mine is to ask questions on the catalytic projects that have been presented here to us today. And let me also welcome the presentation. As always, the DSI comes prepared and carries with it a lot of reports on work being done. Let me move over to what I wanted to ask on the catalytic project. Who owns the IP of these catalytic projects? And let me refer specifically, I may not remember the slide number, but the coal CO2X, the green hydrogen, Buchubai, etc., etc. And noting that these projects are capital intensive, what are the programs that the department is rolling out to ensure that they absorb SMMEs into these projects and that they advance the transformation agenda in all its encompassing framework? And how much of the investment that is required has already been secured on each of the catalytic projects? And in terms of the uptake of green hydrogen across the globe, how competitive in terms of pricing is hydrogen, green hydrogen? Secondly, in terms of transportation, what are the advances that have been made to ensure that a lot more green hydrogen is transported in any form of transport compared to traditional fuels like petrol, diesel, etc., etc.? And would we be correct to say that we should not contain green hydrogen within the sphere of energy only, and that there are multiple or a plethora of uses for green hydrogen? And so to term it as an energy resource is to limit its use as well as its functionality. Would we be correct to say that we should not peg the term energy next to green hydrogen, rather just leave it as they have termed it in the presentation, the green hydrogen economy? But the two questions I've asked at first, Chair, I think are questions of interest on the comparative scale in terms of pricing, the volumes that can be transported, the technology that is there to be able to transport greater volumes compared to what is already conventional in relation to fuels that are already out there in the market that are produced from crude oil. And lastly, Chair, on the question of mainstreaming SMMEs leading the transformation agenda, is there a concrete plan in place to see it through? Because by the look of things, these are high tier, high barriers of entry sectors, even from the word go. And so it is important that in the development of policies and frameworks, there is an intentional move to accommodate SMMEs, to accommodate new entrants into the markets, to accommodate the development of skills with the emphasis on the transformation agenda. We'll emphasize it over and over again because it's important that we see greater levels of transformation in these sectors. Thank you very much, Chair, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. Dr. Moafe, those are then the questions and comments from members. I will hand over to you at this point for any responses.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. Um, I will answer some of the questions, and then some I will defer to the colleagues to deal with. Honorable Chairperson, I think the question on TVET colleges is there's a lot of coincidences on that particular one, especially having premised your introduction on the visit you have had to Switzerland. In my previous life, just prior to COVID, I had traveled to Switzerland to do other businesses, and I actually had a program to visit exactly the same institutions that we have visited. And at that time, the main aim was that we were looking at how we can begin to expand the work of the hydrogen economy in terms of involving TVET colleges. We were starting the two programs at the time. One of them was the issue of green energy buildings. And we wanted to get TVET students and get them trained in various aspects, whether it was installation and so on, the repairs. So after my visit, then we had a training program that we started with the University of Pretoria, and that recruited TVET students from all over the country. And that was really the beginning of us looking at the role of and the involvement of TVET colleges in the green hydrogen economy. You also would have seen that in one of the slides, I indicated the kind of modeling that has been done around how much we need to expand and how many employees can actually be recruited from the TVET system if we continue with the hydrogen economy. So indeed, work around the TVET college skills in the hydrogen economy did start, I think it was 2020. We graduated the first cohort of that training in 2020 during in December 2020. I think it was we were still under some level of COVID restriction at the time. So we have taken that on board, and it's currently something that we're doing. Then you also made reference, Chairperson, on the last slides that were added. So the presentation that we did here didn't have those two, but they are the same slides that I have spoken to when I was talking about the way forward. And indeed, Chairperson, one of the critical areas in terms of the increasing of GET has been trying to bring on board government departments through the aspect of budget coordination. So our take is that if all government departments that are in innovation intensive can contribute towards STI, that will really take us somewhere in terms of where we need to go. And by the way, according to the strategies within the Department of Health, they need to actually avail at least 1% of their budget to R&D, and they acknowledge that they haven't done it. And 1% of the health budget is really huge. So if we have a start through this budget coordination, it will firstly play a role in terms of increasing contribution by various government departments. But secondly, the instruments such as the Innovation Fund, where we begin to put a certain amount of money and the private sector comes on board with their own money, that leveraging impact is also one way where we see the private sector coming on board to add more money. There have been a number of other initiatives, Chairperson, for example, the dinner that the minister organized with various industry players, and it again is to try and drive this particular point. Honorable Mananiso asked a question about AGOA. Yes, we are quite involved there, Honorable Member, and as soon as I'm done with this presentation, I'm also going to be going there as well. So the department is involved in the AGOA engagements. Honorable Litsie, you have asked a question around what the next steps are. I'm just going to pull a couple of areas where the next steps and the progress has been like. For example, when we talk about the Hydrogen Society roadmap, one of the things that we have identified on the Hydrogen Society roadmap is which department is going to be responsible for what. And I'm pleased to say that immediately after the launch of the Hydrogen Society roadmap, our sister department, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, on the basis of the work done, launched the Green Hydrogen Commercialization Strategy. So it is beginning to create an environment where there is that seamless flow of work between ourselves and our sister department. So that is really the progress. In terms of how I can put that in regarding timeframes, I think that would probably require that we look at every particular aspect and say this is how they've been sequenced. But it is important to know that in terms of the actual implementation, when you reflect on our annual performance plan, it already has identified which priorities we have started implementing and are already reporting on. On the circular economy, I have mentioned that we will be finished with the STI circular economy strategy by the middle of next year. We already are in informal discussion with the DFFE. I understand they are interested in us leading the process of development of the national strategy just beyond the STI. So those discussions haven't matured yet, but as soon as we got a way forward, because they need to be leading that at this point in time. But if we have to step in, we're more than happy to do that. So again, in the secularization, things have also moved in terms of collaboration. I must also indicate that we have developed also a system with the CSIR of registering waste pickers. And only end of last month, we have actually signed an agreement in support of the DFFE for them to take over the waste pickers registration. This is also going to help them in many ways in terms of just ensuring that where the waste pickers have to be paid, they need to be paid having been properly registered in a system that works. So that is really, I think, the progress that has been made on the sexual economy. On the area of foundational digital capabilities, we have started engagements with the DCDT. Towards the end of September, both the relevant ministers met, looking at how the work can be coordinated and ensure that when we talk about the investment, we are very clear about what the roles and responsibilities are for the two different government departments. And what is going to come next is the follow-up meeting, which according to the agreement then is that it will need to happen before the end of this year between the two ministers. We have also made progress in terms of the work of the IMC, Honorable Litsie. The IMC, as I said, the most recent meeting was, I think it was Tuesday this week. And what's critical there has been to make sure that we update the IMC on what we have been doing, what progress has been made with what government department. For example, there are some government departments where we are updating and upgrading our memorandums of understanding, and this include the DFFE, Small Business Development Department. We have already done so on the DALRAD one, and we are going to be looking at what else, for example, we need to do with health and also with the DMRE, where in DMRE, you might be aware already of the Samerity program. So there is already that kind of feedback into our IMC and them as ministers giving us direction on what needs to happen. So I must say that coming out of the Tuesday meeting, the biggest thing was that they encourage, actually, they want us to really strengthen the collaboration and joint planning between other government departments and really get rid of the silo mentality. So it's really something that I can say it was the main take home from the engagements we have, and generally there is a lot of I think excitement around the progress made so far. On the strengthening of NACI, you have noted the appointment of the CEO, I think, which is a huge progress. There are a number of things that we're looking at in terms of how we can strengthen the capacity, not just by appointing people into the NACI, but also ensuring that we have a pool of people that are going to be able to assist NACI on various assignments. And that kind of engagements have included certain approvals that we've given to the CEO to say you need to be able to go on with either having contracts or extending contracts of some of the service providers who help NACI. And I think here I'm going to check if DDG Zwane can actually add in terms of what has been done so far around NACI. The SCI plenary, Honorable Alicia, is scheduled for the 12th of December. And we're hoping that it will probably give us a sense of how we need to proceed with the work that is going to also inform the leadership role of the IMC. I think other questions that I might have left out here, will then be dealt with by other colleagues. I think I might have left. I can't remember which question from Honorable Litsie. Then there was a question around innovation skills compact. I'm going to ask DDG Imran to come on board when I'm done. And then the issue on the load shedding issue and the pilot at various government departments. When we started the pilot that we did, Honorable Pillay, at the one military hospital, our intention was that we were going to expand that to government departments who would require uninterrupted services in terms of electricity provision. And of course, in terms of infrastructure that we have to do the piloting, sometimes we've got to move some of this around. So the plan is that we're using hydrogen fuel cells to do this particular aspect as an alternative source of energy. And this is really playing very much into the whole issue of beginning to move into aspects. I've mentioned what we're going to do in the area of mobility. The partner that the department has worked with, which is a company called Bambili, a women-owned company that is looking at commercialization of HISA IP, is that they've already got a very active order book, or they've engaged various bus manufacturers to make sure that they start to pilot this in the transportation sector. They've also engaged various malls where malls are wanting to move into electric fuel cells. But on our case, the piloting is basically to say, how can fuel cells actually relieve some of the service delivery challenges by making sure that relevant government departments actually have uninterrupted power supplies through fuel cells. Honorable Yabo, the questions around catalytic projects. So the way the whole issue around IP is arranged is that we got what we call background IP and foreground IP and so on and so forth. So if the partners that are working together, say on coal carbon dioxide to X project, we've got PPC, we've got some other private sector role players, and then what then happens is there is IP that each party could have brought into this progress. So they own that IP. However, if in the process of doing this work, they generate new IP, as soon as the IP gets generated, there is an arrangement of how that IP is going to be shared amongst the parties. And in most instances, it also follows the funding model, so that you don't have somebody who might have done a quarter of the work and then getting all the IP. So that's basically how the IP ownership is arranged. Also bearing in mind that in cases where we have our entities involved, they then become part owners of that IP as well. So it really is a matter of how that particular IP is shared in all those catalytic projects. The other issue is on support for SMEs and the aspects of transformation. One of the key areas, especially on the Buhubai project, is beyond just the generation of green hydrogen. So we've said there's going to be issues of solar, there's going to be issues of manufacturing of batteries, the battery park, there's going to be issues of electrolyzers park. The proposal there is to make sure that when you talk about activities within the park, you are going to then have smaller suppliers who are going to be supplying to the actual Buhubai project. So the Buhubai main project is concerned about energy generation, but then these parks will be having small parts manufacturers who are contributing to the battery sector, who are contributing to the electrolyzer park, and so on and so forth. There are going to be probes that will need to be manufactured. There's going to be assemblies of batteries that's going to need to happen. And the model is that we need to establish a new ecosystem of small enterprises in that particular locality. The issue of the transportation of hydrogen, there are various modalities of transportation. Well, of course, there's possibilities of using the pipeline as we do with other fuel, if that's really when you're talking about local transportation, trucks, etc. But then there is various forms in which it is transported. One of them, as I may have highlighted, is that you then use various products such as ammonia. So in ammonia, in terms of the chemical equation, you got what you refer to it as NH3. So it's a nitrogen atom and 3 hydrogen atoms. So basically, it becomes one of the best carriers of hydrogen, where you can then transport it in liquefied form as ammonia. And that's basically one of the ways in which currently they transport gray hydrogen. From the highest perspective, we had 3 centers of competence. We had catalysis, which was at UCT and Mintech. We had infrastructure, which was at Northwest and CSIR, and we also had systems, which was at UWC. Now, one of the focus on the infrastructure part at UWC, at University of Northwest and CSIR was specifically this aspect of storage and transportation, looking at the most stable way of dealing with this. And as I said, then that's where you look at containers, some of them looking like the ones that we use for liquefied gas that we use in the houses. And this kind of work was not just done at university level, but there was a lot of partnership with the likes of Sasol and so on and so forth. And I think I fully agree again with the point that Honorable Yabo makes, that the hydrogen economy should not just be about energy. It's much broader than energy. We have spoken about ammonia. We, of course, look about how it can be used in other sectors such as so we talk energy, we talk various chemicals that can be used in various industrial applications. So it is much bigger than that. And in terms of its demand compared to the green hydrogen, and that really talks to the issue of the costing, which I think is a very extremely important issue. Currently, green hydrogen is much more expensive than gray hydrogen. But there are a number of factors that are actually swinging the momentum or the pendulum towards green hydrogen. One of them is the drive to cleaner environment. And that is why I mentioned the likes of Japan, who are currently getting gray hydrogen from Australia, that they are looking at getting green hydrogen. But we also have done some modeling, and I think if colleagues were here from Program 2, they would refer to that, where we're looking at over time, as hydrogen economy grows, that the green hydrogen will actually reach a point where it starts becoming on par with the current gray hydrogen prices and then gets better. But these sort of things start off slowly, and then with momentum and the uptake, then they grow. But currently, it is expensive, and there are also just a few things that are swinging the momentum or the pendulum in support of preference for green hydrogen. So in terms of bringing the SMEs, if I have to go back, the aspect of the commercialization strategy which the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has launched is also looking at that aspect of supply of and small enterprises support and instruments that are going to ensure that there is transformation. So that again is work that, as we hand over some of this work in terms of how it grows and matures in the value chain, that other government incentives start coming on board. I think I'm going to hand over to the colleagues as I've highlighted, and if there are other questions that I've left, Chairperson and honorable members, you'll just remind me so that we can address them if we can, and if not, then we just follow the process of saying we're going to be responding through written responses. Maybe we start with Imran.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Again, it's a pleasure to engage and to try to respond to some of the questions. DDG Moefe highlighted one question that he wanted me to deal with, and that is around the Skills and Innovation Compact. Two parts to this. One is that as part of our efforts together with DHET in the development of the Master Skills Plan and the Human Resource Development Strategy, what we have done is identified with our entities in a very targeted way the kind of skills requirements across the value chain. So on hydrogen, the bioeconomy, we would need process, in circular economy, we would need process engineers, etc. So we've asked the teams who are driving each of these priority areas to identify what are their skills requirements that we in the DSI, the program I'm responsible for, program 4, can effectively factor this into the master skills plan. So that work is ongoing, and our intention is to be very targeted, to be clear about what are the skills that we require. Second, the second part of this is that a compact like the Innovation and Skills Compact, I think by December, the intention is to secure at least the commitment, particularly of the private sector, but other social partners, to an ongoing process of effectively partnering together. So the intention is to at least secure a framework. We've learned this from other compacting processes that government has adopted. If you have a long compact with many, many elements, etc., it doesn't necessarily get implemented effectively. However, one of the big ticket items, and I'll leave the details to be announced on the 12th, is the creation of a fund and a program at the presidential level to drive a targeted development of PhDs in South Africa. So the intention is to based on the priority areas that we've identified in the decadal plan. For example, we know we need to build our foundational digital capabilities, or we need to build around the circular economy or hydrogen fuel cells, is to take those requirements into a consolidated fund, and the minister has directed the National Skills Fund to seed this fund to the value of an initial amount of R1 billion, and we then want to secure co-funding into this fund that would target PhD development. And I'm using the word PhD development, not just PhD training, because the intention with this fund is to in fact provide wraparound support so that the PhDs we develop will get international exposure. When they come back, they would be able to easily move into a postdoctoral position, etc., in a very targeted way in terms of our requirements around the PhD support. So that's going to be one of the big big announceables and the details around this. There are some, based on the dinner, there has been a few private sector players that we think with the proposal of creating this fund and a very targeted program run at the presidential level, that we would get takers for this program. And then, Chair, what you've done in Switzerland, we have a number of these programs where we're able to maximize or in fact secure greater opportunities to send our young people. I think you met some of them at CERN, etc. So the idea would be also to use our opportunities for international partners, both established partners and new partners that are coming through the BRICS forum, to secure targeted PhD opportunities. So that's going to be a key part of the Innovation and Skills Compact. And then other areas will emerge as we engage a lot more with the private sector. So the issue is to watch the space, but we really want to lift out the need for a very targeted program of PhD development and deployment to take us forward in terms of our ambitions in the decadal plan. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's go to Cosmas. Cosmas, you're going to answer some questions on the Hydrogen Society roadmap and the implementation progress. Dr. Chiteme.
My apologies, DDG. I was still trying to just get my unmuted. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, Chair of the Portfolio Committee and honorable members. I just want to provide some more information on the progress that we have made in the implementation of the Hydrogen Society Roadmap. As DDG Mofe pointed out, on the core CO2 to X, we have demonstrated the technology at a cement plant in Limpopo. The next phase of the demonstration of the technology is now going to be done at a coal-fired power plant so that we can actually get more information about the performance of the technology based on the differences in the flue gas composition coming out of those two industrial sectors. So that will then inform the next scaling of the project at a ESCOM plant kind of level, where we hope to make impact. In addition to that, there is also a number of engagements that we have had with SASOL, including the establishment of the research chairs on green hydrogen economy in collaboration with the National Research Foundation, where we are going to train PhD doctoral students in an industrial environment, as well as an interface with the academic environment, so that there is actually complete training, both from a knowledge generation point of view, but also on the application of the knowledge. We are also going to use the platform that SASOL is going to establish in Sasolburg for testing and demonstrating some of the technologies that has been developed through the HISA Centers of Competence. In terms of some of the deployments that we are now doing to assist, or rather to support critical infrastructure, the deployment of technology at the Home Affairs offices in Randburg has been mentioned, and that is also going to be connected to the powering of some of the infrastructure at Mintec, but also because Mintec is involved in the development of the technology, there is expertise to support that deployment. We have also done deployment at the DMRE offices in Pretoria to also make our colleagues aware of the viability of this technology to support or to alleviate load shedding, particularly when it comes to powering critical infrastructure. The third deployment that we have done in this regard is the one that we did to support the Disaster Management Center in Kwadukuza in KZN. So that is also the deployment to alleviate load shedding and to continue to power the critical infrastructure that is required to coordinate the relief efforts, particularly in terms of floods and so forth. So those are just some of the examples, but I would also want to highlight some of the work that is being done around the cost-effective transportation of hydrogen. Northwest University is looking at what is called liquid organic hydrogen carrier technology, where you can actually inject hydrogen in an organic liquid that can be transported at room temperature, and therefore you can now move hydrogen from the point where it is produced and you release it at the point where it is needed to be used. So those are some of the progress that we have made, but also on training. I think we have partnered now with the Energy and Water SETA on trying to expand the training of TVET students, both in hydrogen and fuel cell technologies, as well as energy storage, where we have actually seen that after the 12-month internship in energy storage, these students are actually offered permanent employment with the private sector partners that we work with. And at the moment, we are actually sitting at 90% absorption of those students by the private sector. So I hope I've addressed the questions that you wanted me to address, DDG Morphe.
Thanks very much, Cosmas. I think you have done so. I'm just going to ask DDG Gugu to just provide some updates on the issue of NACI strengthening.
Thank you, DDG Mboneni. Good morning, Chair and board members, and good morning to the colleagues. In terms of the NACI strengthening, Honorable Letsia, we are on track there. Just to give a breakdown in terms of what that whole process entails. There's the amendment of the NACI Act, which is currently underway. We are working with our legal unit within the DSI to help us with that part. There is also looking at building in terms of where they are located and the financing thereof, which also affects the strengthening in terms of who they are supposed to be, as stipulated in the white paper. We are already starting in terms of the composition of the council to augment areas which the minister had appointed a minimum number of council members. So we are trying to fill up the vacancies at this moment so that all the areas are covered. We part of the restructuring process which you asked about is looking at strengthening of the NACI Secretariat over and above what DDG Mboneni alluded to, looking at also external assistance in terms of NACI. We are also looking at the strengthening of the M&E, where we are. One of the things that had been recommended was the potential migration of SESTI to NACI. These are part of also a business case that the council is busy with or almost ready to be submitted to the department. We have made strides as well in terms of the role clarification as far as M&E is concerned, what NACI is supposed to do and what us as the DSI are supposed to do within the National System of Innovation. So that is all as far as NACI is concerned. And then the Honorable also asked about where we are with the restructuring of the department. We are on track though there as well, though a bit behind. We had hoped that by the end of October, we would have submitted the service delivery model to DPSA. However, we needed to come to an agreement as EXCO, as well as to be sure that the portfolios or the functions that we see emerging, we agree with, that there would be the perfect ones in terms of supporting the decadal plan and the implementation thereof. We are now drafting the service delivery model in terms of translating the functions into the template, and we are hoping that probably before we go to the holidays or by the end of November, we would be in a position to submit to DPSA and then wait for inputs there. In terms of the timeframes, we are still trying to target the end of the financial year to be done completely so that we start implementation in the next financial year. There is also gonna be a skills audit, which will then look at what we have versus what we need and fill in those gaps and see if there are people that need to be retrained as well. We are working with the service provider in terms of the change management plan, which is going to kick off now as we begin to involve the department and the bigger community. The challenges, of course, would be the funds to fund the structure, but we understand what we are going through right now and we're going to work within what we have, but also understanding that there are new skills that we need that are emerging from the exercise. We just have to find a way of working around that up until a point where we have funding to be able to implement or to be able to recruit those skills. That's it from me, DT and I think I've covered everything that was asked. Thank you.
DT
Sorry, I was talking to myself, Honorable Chairperson. I said according to my register of questions, it looks like we have addressed everything. I'm going to hand over back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, DDG Mwafe, and to all the colleagues that responded to the questions and comments by members. I'd like to believe that we've been greatly clarified, and I think there are some matters that we can lift for further engagement at a later stage. And I hope Shanaz and Renee, you've picked up on some of those. I would like to believe that this brings us to the end of our meeting in terms of our engagements with yourselves. We wish you well with the work that you continue to do. And we will be, of course, interacting with yourselves continuously. And I think it will be important that, as we move towards putting together the legacy report of the committee, because we are nearing the end of our term, that we begin to highlight some of the key matters that the committee finds to be important that should be lifted or accelerated through the decadal plan. But thank you very much, and you are more than welcome to go. We just have to do some admin on our side as members. But thanks a lot for your contributions to today's meeting.
Thanks a lot, Chairperson. And,
thanks, Chair and members.
Okay, Shanaz, I'd like to check on your side if we meet quorum.
Okay, earlier when I counted, we were.
We're 6.
Yes, Chair, and yes.
Okay, so we meet quorum.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we're 7. Because
with you. With you.
Nobo's here. Yeah, it's
2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Mananiso.
6, 7. Yeah, now we're fine. We're fine.
Honorable Mananiso, I see your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's a legacy hand.
Chairperson, it's a legacy hand. It's a legacy hand, sorry.
Okay. All right. So, one matter or 2 matters that we need to deal with is the adoption of the BRRR reports. And I want to thank colleagues for ensuring that these reports are already on time. Let's perhaps go through the first one. I hope members have it in front of them. So the first one would be on DHET. On my side, if there are any amendments or additions I'd like to make, under recommendations, I think we were quite clear that we need to, come towards the conclusion of the work being done around the comprehensive student funding model. I think perhaps I may have missed it under observations, but under recommendations, I think it's very important that we speak to the comprehensive student funding model and the us coming to the end of that work, noting, of course, that there were commitments around it going to cabinet, I think end of October, but yeah, we need that report so that we are able to address and bring about stability in terms of the financing of the sector. So I think that could be added somehow. I think it was mentioned in the meeting. I'd like to note from any members, if there are any additions they would like to make to the DHBRR report. Okay, I don't see any hands. I'd like to then note members who would like to move for the adoption of the DHBRR report. All right, I see Honorable Mananiso.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me say that I the minutes with your amendments. However, one have noted that whatever that you have made input on has been reflected on the observations of the meeting. So I move for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection. Thank you. Of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Litia, your hand was up next. Can I note your input? I'm assuming you'd like to second the adoption of the BRRR report.
Iqiniso lelo ngihlala phambili becela ukusupporta uHonorable Sibulethu ngokuxhasa le report as a reflection.
I ukufundise kahle Chief Whip. Colleagues, the BRRR report for DHET has been adopted by Honorable Mananiso and has been seconded by Honorable Litia. Thank you so much. We look forward to the engagements in plenary. Seeing as no one has objected to this report, we don't expect to have people with contrary views in plenary. But that was on a lighter note. I'd like to then go towards the DSI's BRRR report. I feel captured by the observations and the recommendations. I don't think there's anything on my side that I'd like to add at this point in time. Can I note members who may want to add to the report? Okay, I don't see any hands. Can I note members who would like to adopt the DSI BRRR report?
Chairperson.
Honorable Mananiso.
Yes, thank you. I've actually raised my hand and I want to adopt the report as a true reflection of the meeting. And I think, Chair, how you are running this part of a report, it's actually limiting us to as if we are just endorsing from you as the chairperson, but the minutes are a true reflection of the meeting. Thank you.
If there's something you'd like to add, Honorable Mananiso, please go ahead. So sorry, I asked if there are any amendments that you would like to make.
There is nothing, but I'm just saying your input.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you. It's a true reflection, yes.
Okay, cool. No, thank you, Honorable Mananiso. Can I note a hand from a member who would like to second the adoption of the report? I see Honorable Sibia's hand is up. Ma'am Sibia?
Is seconding, I think the problem is the network.
Yeah, inkinga ukuthi kumele azishole.
Unmute her.
Ma'am Sibia, your mic is not opening. I see your hand is up, but your mic is not open. So can I please call, we note this, oh, there we go. The mic is open, Ma'am Sibi.
Hello.
Yaguzwa, ma.
Okay, I'm seconding that the adoption. Hey, my network is too bad.
Glungile, ma.
Okay, thanks, ma.
Okay. So
Chair, Chairperson, there's something interesting here. Can you note as well the IFP so that we get sense in terms of the adoption of this particular report?
I note the hand of Honorable Mawa from the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. So, Chairperson, I just wanted to say that as a DA, we reserve our rights on this vote. Vote report, Chairperson.
We would like to note that the DSI BRRR report has been adopted by Honorable Mananiso, and that adoption has been seconded by Honorable Sibia. All right, thank you so much, colleagues. We'll see each other in plenary in terms of our discussions on the two reports. That then brings us to the end of today's committee meeting. And I wish you, Honorable Mananiso.
Yes, I think the agenda speaks about the minutes as well.
Please mute. There we go. Can I please request, Honorable Mananiso, that we deal with the minutes next week, Friday, if that's okay with colleagues? Okay. All right, I see a thumbs up. Kindly, my whip. See, there's a hand up. I'm not sure who that is. Between Shanaz and Anel, I'm not sure who that is.
No, Chair, I'm okay. I'll note that.
Okay.
I just wanted to advise the committee that next week, Friday, there's a sitting of the National Assembly. There won't be a meeting of the committee.
It's not favorable for us to move them to next week, Friday, because we don't know how many plenaries might be taken away from us. Okay, that's fine. Anela, can you please, I don't have capacity to go through, to flight them. So can you please list them on your side? Because I'm using my phone, so it might be a bit tricky for me to go through each grouping of minutes. Anele?
Hi, Chair. I'm just trying to share the minutes.
Okay, so I think we can do the ones on the 18th, and members will also confirm if they are comfortable with this. So it will be minutes from the 18th of October, 20th of October, and the 1st of November. I hope colleagues are comfortable with that. All right, so.
Sorry, Chair, it's the 18th and the 20th of October.
Oh, you don't want us to do the ones on the 1st of November? We have those.
I'm sorry, Chair, we did not send them.
Oh, it's only to me.
That's correct, Chair.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. Please do circulate them to members. So we'll do 18 and 20. On the 18th of October, on the 18th of October, we interacted with the National Skills Fund, as well as the ETDP and the ETDP CETA. I did not chair this meeting, so I would prefer if Honorable Mananiso, well, I can't, yeah, so those who are in the meeting will indicate if these minutes were a true reflection of the committee meeting that sat on the 18th. Can I note hands that seek to adopt the minutes? Okay, Honorable Litsia, followed by Honorable Mananiso. Honorable Litsia.
Jale ba modulasetulo lebitso la ka ntse le Walter Letsie ke ema ke phamisa o dumellana le di minutes tsa di meeting tseo tse pedi ke re ena e dumellana le tsone ke a leboha.
Ra leboga Morena Letsie. Mme Mananiso.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I think one would want to confirm and second the minutes, both minutes of the 18th October and the 20th of October as a true reflection of the meeting, as said by Honorable Litsie. Thank you.
Ra leboga Mme Mananiso. The minutes tsa di 18th October di adoptilwe ke Honorable Litsie le Mme Mananiso. Sengicela-ke ukuthi siye kuma-minutes kwe-20 ka-October nge-20 ka-October besi-interactor ne-National Research Foundation, ne-HSRC, ne-CSIR on their annual reports. Ngicela ukubona amalunga afisa uku-adopta lama minutes as a true reflection of leyo meeting. Honorable Mananiso.
Thank you, Chair. I'm repeating myself. I second the minutes as adopted by Honorable Litsi.
Siyabonga Mama Mananiso. Ngicela ukubona ilunga elifisa ukusekela i-adoption yalama minutes wange-20.
Councillor uyayilahla ngoku. I have moved for the adoption of the 2 minutes and seconded by minutes.
Noted, Honorable Litsi. Yo guys, nizosixolela phela thina ezine we are casualties of very problematic education system. But thank you so much to both Honorable Litsie and Honorable Mananiso. Firstly, Honorable Mananiso for adopting those minutes, and then Honorable Litsie for seconding those minutes. So the minutes of the 18th and the 20th of October have been adopted. We will interact with the ones from the 1st of November at a later stage. Anele, you can circulate those minutes to members. That should, I believe, bring us to the end of our meeting. Thank you very much. Have a
Recording
stopped. Malibongwe.
A great weekend. Rest, comrades, rest.
No, I'm going to rest.
Let's rest.
Bye, guys.
Because you want us to adopt the same minutes 3 times. Rest. Rest, Buffet, to rest.
Masibona wena uresta kuqala phela.